everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I'm super excited to be here to share with you all. Thank you for the kind words, Mohannad. I don't see myself as an expert. I feel like we're all experts in the room, and today, the vibe that we're trying to set, I feel like we have an opportunity to really learn from each other and to share what we love about poetry, the environment around us, and to really jog ideas about how whatever we create today can possibly end up as a submission for the Sidewalk Poetry Contest. But more importantly, a chance for us to be creative together, to share together, to create, to learn more about the work that this organization does, but also learn more about each other. I think that's one of my favorite things about the workshop. I often forget about the lessons that are taught that day, but I almost never forget the people that I talk to and about the stories that we all learn from one another. So sort of in that same vein, we've done our introductions. I would like to do some quick group introductions, and I would like to do these out loud. Folks online or in the video, you're not going to hear this. There's lots of amazing people in the room, but all of us get a chance to see each other. So real quick and simple introductions, your name. What do you like to write? It doesn't have to be poetry. It could be anything. What do you like to write in general? What do you like to write about? If you want to talk about form, you can do that too. And then a quick icebreaker is your favorite body of water you've ever been to anywhere in the world. I can start. My name is Kevin Yang once again. I really like to write spoken word poetry, slam poetry, which is very different from sidewalk poetry. And I also really like to write documentary scripts. That's something that I'm really interested in. And my favorite body of water that I've ever been to is Quang Si Falls in Luang Prabang, Laos. The water is very green and it is encompassing and it is so full. And I got a chance to swim there too. And there's also like a zoo next to it that has a bear that only has 3 appendages, which is sad, but also very cute. So that is my answer. We could start right here, and then we can go around in a circle this way.
Stephanie Bennett, and I like to write about the poetry and stories about the elements and just like the cosmobiology and the way the world works. And my favorite body of water would be, I have to say, Otter Tail Lake, and Otter Tail River up north, northern Minnesota.
Definitely. Thank you, Stephanie. Yep.
Hi, I'm Barbara Hall, and I don't know if I like to write them, but I have to write them because it's my primary work. I'm a technical writer. Grant proposals and research papers and market analysis and planning documents. I do enjoy the research involved in learning and writing about that and channeling that into opportunities to secure grant funding for my clients. Some of them who have partnered and gotten grants from the Watershed District. My favorite body of water, I've been to a lot. I'm an island person, so and travel a lot. And my favorite body of water though would be Paint Creek, which is a small cascade up in the mountains of Appalachia in North Carolina, just west of Cherokee County. And people, it's like a local spot. People go up there and they just like swim and sit on the rocks. It's up in the mountains. It's beautiful.
Definitely. Thank you, Barbara. Next one.
Hi, my name is Ana Luchtan. I am a representative of one of the minorities that you are including. I was born in Argentina. I do creative writing in Spanish, especially oriented for children. I am a psychologist working with children all my life. And I was invited by this group that we are very, like each one is coming with a different background to produce a kind of collective poem. So I was very happy that you include Spanish in the list. And my favorite body of water, at least the one that speaks to me, are the Iguazu Falls in the north of Argentina, which they are impressive and they are like shared with Paraguay and Brazil, so they are huge. And okay, when I am away, this is coming to my mind.
Thank you, Anna.
My name is Marva Bowen. Mostly what I write these days is journaling. And I like doing that. Body of water. I don't think I've ever seen a stream or a river that I didn't love. And so currently, my favorite body of water is walking along the Mississippi River.
Thank you.
Yeah, my name is Mike Brogdon. Really don't write too much these days. I've kind of put it aside from career of writing reports and supervision and things like that, where I really haven't gotten into the other side of things for myself. So I'm getting there, but we're not currently. Places about waters, boundary waters, going up there for camping and things like that. And also I went to school out near Niagara Falls. So that was always available,
Definitely.
which I enjoyed.
Thank you. And then we can move back. Yep.
Hi, sure. Hello, I am Stephen Swore. I use he, him pronouns, and it's nice to see you all. Well, in my day job, I work for the Minnesota Orchestra, so I'm doing a lot of writing to patrons about the power of the arts and the essence and necessity of the arts, and how we're lucky we are in the state to have all these amazing things, like a free workshop today on poetry, right? Who wouldn't show up to this? Why wouldn't he show up? Why wouldn't he show up and be curious? I'm also a yoga teacher, and so I do a lot of writing in terms of what am I going to theme about? What's on my mind? What's on the heart? What's on the world? What do we want to talk about? What do I want students to leave the class? What's the word I want to land, right? So a lot of journaling on that. Like you, like many of you, we've been to many places, but winter, spring, summer, fall, the North Shore, I just think is magical.
Definitely. Thank you. Yep. And then we can move. Yep.
My name is Roz, and I like to write to-do lists. And every day I change the date at the top because nothing ever gets checked off. Let's see. I like the Caribbean, the water there, but I have a story from many, many years ago. I was in Australia and I remarked, I don't even remember what body of water I was near, but I was in Australia and I kept saying, oh my God, the water is so blue. And these people that were locals were like, well, what color did you expect it to be? And I was thinking of the Mississippi River, like green, brown, so it was like fascinating to me that there was such blue water other places in the world,
Definitely. Thank you.
Factor easier. I don't write too often, but I do write research papers, and some poetry in my downtime. Really, whatever comes to mind. Some occasional things. Free form as well. Favorite body of water, specifically one I can think of, the Mississippi River. That one's just so important. In a more non-specific manner, the waters in Iceland are beautiful. There's so much special there. A lot of hot springs. Great. Great place.
Thank you.
I'm Julie, and I'm also a grant writer, and also think that's terribly enjoyable. So I write and read poetry at open mics, and I'm also writing a memoir that has poetry embedded in it. And favorite body of water, Pacific Ocean.
Definitely. I'm loving the number of grant writers and researchers we have. Thank you.
My name is Dean. I like to write poetry and just what comes to mind, but also like cultural reviews, concerts, movies, and just kind of reflections on days and kind of so on. My favorite body of water, Stephen, Lake Superior.
Definitely. Folks entering, feel free to take a seat anywhere you'd like. Thank you for that.
I jump up.
For sure. For the person sitting down, we're doing quick introductions. Okay, yeah, you.
Hi, my name's Marilyn. I am a retired high school English teacher, so there's so many things I like to write.
Poetry is probably my favorite. I have written grants with to bring in artists to a school that I work with. Favorites, I never have a favorite of anything, so I get really nervous as soon as I see the word favorite. I'm like, oh. But one lake that just popped to mind from some hiking in Glacier some years ago was called Cracker Lake, and it was just this impossible blue. I don't think I've ever seen that color of blue anywhere else other than at Cracker Lake. So yeah, I don't have favorites, but that one just sort of popped in mind.
Definitely, thank you. For the person who just sat down, we're doing quick introductions. If you could say your name, your what do you like to write? It could be form or it could be topic, whatever comes to mind for that. And then your favorite body of water you've ever been to anywhere in the world.
So my name is Judy Levin Marshall. I like to read poetry. It's very hard. I think that's the question. I just feel like there's such a diversity of water that I've seen in my life and blessed to see. But I don't know. It's sort of what sprang to my mind. I think this will just suffice. Is recently I was in the Maryland, DC, Virginia area and went out to the Great Falls, what they call it, and the Potomac River has all of these rocky. And I think I grew up in Maryland, but so I think this is a place I'd been to as a younger person, but it's been a really long time. So I was just very impressed, and it was a beautiful kind of a day like this, just beautiful. And the combination of the sky and the water and the rocks together.
Thank you. And we can move back to Mohannad.
Mohannad, I'm a labs academic, so I used to write research papers. I love that. I miss it. I miss the slight headaches I used to get from thinking too hard. My favorite body of water that probably represents me the most is the Red Sea, the saltiest sea on Earth, probably the most precipitous, full of dangerous life. But the one that smited me the most was the coast of the Pacific at Big Sur.
Thank you.
My name's Brian Ethier. I'm Zach's father over there, and I don't do much writing other than do equations for glass formulas and things like that. I'm a glass artist. But my favorite body of water would probably be in Iceland when I was there with Zach. Just down from Gullfoss waterfall, we walked down and there's a guide that took us down there, and we walk into this cave that is like at the bottom of this cliff, and we walk in and there's a little tunnel, and then it's open at the top, and there's this waterfall falling in this cave with just enough light to grow moss on one side of the cave. And it was like the most surreal place I had ever been. It was very interesting.
Sure. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Madeline. I don't do a ton of writing, but I do write the e-blasts that you may have subscribed to for Public Art St. Paul. Mohannad and I collaborate on that a little bit. So that's the regular writing in my life. I don't live far from Lake Nokomis, and that's got to be one of my favorite bodies of water to frequent because there's like a busy side, and then there's also like the kind of a quiet, marshy side. So just like depending on how you're feeling, you can go to one side or the other. I like that.
Lake Nokomis was my favorite lake growing up, so a little biased. Thank you, Yua.
My name is Yua Vang. I'm the project manager for Sidewalk Poetry this year. I used to be the curator of community engagement for Public Art St. Paul a few years ago during the swamp narration as well. In my side gigs, I'm a freelance journalist, mainly music. So I write about music a lot each month for a couple publications, The Current and MSP Magazine. And then currently I did get a grant for a memoir, a recipe book about my mom's cooking, but how I connect to my culture through food. And hopefully it'll be out soon, but that's what I'm currently writing about. And then my favorite body of water is Pacific Ocean. You know, I love Hawaii, but then we recently went to California and got to put our feet in the water there too. So.
My name is Juan Bang. I'm shooter pronouns. Lately, I have, because I got a fellowship last year, so I started writing and collecting oral folklores from elders and monk elders and rewriting them in my own voice in English and Hmong. So that's been pretty amazing. And so my goal is to continue on with that. My favorite body of water is probably the Mekong River in Laos, just because there's so much connection throughout my life. And then, you know, we visited it probably about 15 years ago, and it's much smaller than what it was when we came to the US back in the 80s. But yeah, that's probably my favorite body.
My name is Lynn Boyd. I like to write Post-it notes. My favorite body of water, flowing water, is Multnomah Falls. And a temporary body of water used to be the enormous puddle that used to grow in our cul-de-sac when my kids were little, and they would go out in the rainbows, become raindrops themselves.
So I'm the raindrop. I'm Crystal. But I like to write about Minnesota history. I'm working on a biography of Joel Bean Bassett, who is the namesake of Bassett Creek in the West Metro, or the Dakota name is Hahawakada. So we're working to raise awareness of the Dakota name. So I'll say that that is my favorite body of water.
My name is Russell Rathbun, and like to write creative nonfiction, fiction about, I guess, where the environment, natural environment and the created environment kind of butt up against each other and fail each other maybe a little bit. And my favorite body of water is the Salton Sea in the desert in California. It's the largest lake, and it's created by accident. Yeah.
Dang it, Kevin, why are you making us do this? It's so hard.
I'm Luana Sullivan Jansen, and I am a poet who likes to use the space that exists between storytelling and public art to create like community poems, where I invite people to share different lines. So I really appreciated when you said a poem that was written in many different voices was really exciting to me. But I'm also a historian by training. And so I often teach workshops and invite people to use the everyday writing that they do, like grocery list and to-do list and things, to form lovely poems. And so this entire session, I've been creating a list of bodies of water and trying to cross off the ones that someone else said, so that, you know, the other ones would get some street cred. And so the body of water that makes me cry every time I remember my first experience in it is the Indian Ocean on the coast of Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, because that was my first time going to Africa and my first time putting my feet in the water. The body of water that I visit every chance I get that gives me that similar feeling is Lake Superior in the Apostle Islands. So I think that they just do a dance together as being these really places that I know the rich history of and that move me constantly.
Thank you.
My name is Jackie Bangfort. I write poetry and fiction, and for my day job, I write promotions for scholarships. And I used to be in the Navy, so I've seen a lot of water. But my favorite is I grew up in southeast North Dakota on a river called the Cheyenne River, and there was a little unnamed creek that ran through my grandparents' pasture. So that's probably actually my favorite, but it doesn't have a name. So
Lindsay, did you want to share?
you know my name, Lindsay. What do I like to write? I would also say I'm a creative in some respects, but writing isn't tend to be my medium of choice. So like Roz, it's maybe to-do lists is my most frequent exercise of writing. So my favorite body of water you've been to anywhere in the world. Yes, I resonate with this conflict answering that question. We went to, I'll just bring up a recent trip with my family. We went to the North Shore, so I think that resonates with a lot of folks. But I have 3 young daughters, and so exposing them to that Great Lake, Gitchigami, and the power held within it, and trying to sort of introduce that to a 4, 6, and 8-year-old was, I guess, really, really, I don't know, fulfilling experience for me. Thank you for that.
Definitely. Perfect. Thank you, everybody. I know we took some time to do that, but really appreciate the introductions. Now we have a better idea of who we are. For the folks who are watching this video, we didn't have the opportunity to hear all of the amazing people in the room, but some cliff notes. Water is supposed to be the color blue. And there's lots of folks in the room who are amazing grant writers and researchers. So if you need some money, call us up. But thank you so much, everybody. I'm going to do a quick reintroduction of myself. Once again, my name is Kevin Yang. I'm a multimedia storyteller. I love media in many, many forms. I'm also a cultural worker. I spend a lot of time thinking about my identity as a Hmong person in the United States. Really love poetry. That's my first love. Really enjoy filmmaking, particularly documentary filmmaking. And I really enjoy video games. That's my next big adventure, is learning how to make video games. My day job is I'm a marketer at Twin Cities PBS, particularly in education. So have a background in education and youth work. So I love the opportunity to share and to get people talking to one another. I was the Sidewalk Poetry Contest juror in 2019 and also was a co-curator in 2023. So I've had the opportunity to sit on a couple of processes and to sort of share what I've learned. And to get a chance to talk about the importance of this project. Cool. So a couple more details about the Sidewalk Poetry Contest. As we said earlier, this year is an amazing collaboration between Public Arts St. Paul and the Capitol Region Watershed District. It's an open call for poets throughout the city of St. Paul. Doesn't matter your age, doesn't matter your educational background, how many things that you've published. It's really a celebration of art and public art and poetry, and giving an opportunity for the people of this city to have their chance to be heard and to literally have your words etched into the ground of the city of St. Paul, which I think is such a beautiful thing. The selected poems, as I said earlier, are inscribed onto sidewalks throughout the city of St. Paul. You do not control where they are printed, as far as I'm aware. Mohannad, correct me. From what I'm aware, the way that the process works is there's a couple of sidewalks that are highlighted throughout the city that need to be repaired. So as they're breaking them up and laying new concrete, that is the opportunity in which they lay in and stamp these new poems into the sidewalk, which is an important note. For example, if you're like, I really love going to McAllister or something, and you write a poem on McAllister, there's a chance that your poem might not actually make it to the sidewalk in front of McAllister College. So just keeping that in mind. And as has been said earlier, I think it's a really beautiful thing that we're welcoming submissions in Dakota, Karen, Hmong, Somali, Spanish, and English, as well as have a panel of juries who reflect that skill base and that proficiency with the language, which is really cool. Couple other quick details. The winners are selected by jury, poets, community members. As I said earlier, as a former juror myself, this is a really beautiful thing to sit down and to look over that poetry with folks who really care about this. Contest is open from May 4th to June 3rd. So the contest has been open for 5 days and will continue to be open for the next month or so. And as we said earlier as well, this year's theme is water. You can learn more and find the submission form at publicartsstpaul.org. All of you should have this flyer in front of you right now. If you don't, you should take a picture of this slide. Or you can just go to publicartsstpaul.org and you can find out more information on there. As I said earlier, the theme of this year's of this year's contest is water, and I think it's a really beautiful thing that we're collaborating with such with an organization that has such a deep knowledge of it, and to really think about the health of our water system, our ecosystem in general, and to really see the stories behind that, and to really activate this workshop in our sort of first touch point in a space like this. Really have the opportunity to learn more from folks who are doing this work every day. So I'll turn it back over to Lindsay if you want to talk more about our quick exhibit tour.
All right, thank you. So our space doesn't always have all of these interpretive panels. These are a traveling exhibit that is facilitated through 8 state agencies and the Minnesota Humanities Center called We Are Water. It travels throughout the state of Minnesota every year, so we're hosting this here until June 14th and activating our space through engagements like today, and also inviting drop-in visitors to come and interact with the resources at any time during our office hours. So you have a flyer on that as well. But I think particularly something that would be helpful for folks to spark creative writing processes are the stories that are captured and shared through this exhibit. So one of the pieces of this exhibit includes local stories that connect, or individual storytellers share their connection to water. So out this store where you all walked in, there is an audio kiosk. It has 2 different sides. One side has 6 audio stories from individuals throughout the watershed community here that we are connected to, who have recorded an interview and share their story of water. So you can listen to that. The other side has 2 really important Indigenous perspective stories. So those are some audio experiences, as well as right out this door, there's a traditional ecological knowledge audio kiosk with 5 or 6 different stories connecting individuals to water and traditional ecological knowledge. There's also print stories. So, you know, there's may not be space for everyone to listen to a story. There's a print kiosk right by the entry that's yellow. It has print stories on both sides of that, as well as if you turn this corner, there's restrooms, and then keep going. There are some little quote cards hanging on a wall in the far room with individuals' stories and their connection to water. So we invite you to spend some time exploring the exhibit. There's a lot of science-based elements as well if you're curious about diving deep into a topic, groundwater, surface water, etc. But those story pieces might provoke some creative writing processes. So we have, I don't know how much time do you want to give for that, Kevin?
We can do about 10 minutes, and then if folks are feeling like they're ready, you can come back. You know, let them know that we're ready.
We'll kind of gauge the room. So now is a free time. And again, there's restrooms right behind this wall if you need a break. I'll check on the coffee and the water in the back. So go experience some storytelling or some science-based water information for a few moments here.
Do you know what it's called? That's something the murals. These small, they're like on practically extension of anyway, They were which is amazing.
No, she's actually been.
Most,
But when she was not. Yeah. When my kids.
really,
Yeah.
I asked them what they're like, they just go in our street. One is
I know when you said. I'm like, oh, there's my husband, I usually. Yeah. Yeah. Blocking the chicken. Yeah.
Yeah, most of our work is either just commissions and it's what our client. Right. But you know, this year we sort of is a singular point. How much money we get. We're hoping to put up. Yeah, in place of those big machines, just you may remember from last year, love it, yeah. It was a traveling exhibit. Yes, big machines, yeah, they went somewhere else. And we may have like, a silent film screening with performance art, violin art, just more claims. Again. Yeah. But really, most of the permanent works we're doing these days are the project in the city, and there are 6 of them currently. Yeah. You need the.
Gonna resign. Ball too, I know I have. My wife's gonna wait for.
It is, he likes the coats.
We should, you know, we introduced the any glass artist logo, so it's not really on me. Sure.
The reason why I chose that location is that's my ancestors.
So it's,
Yeah.
by somebody.
Sounded so beautiful. Freaking lost.
So, you know, and I.
Really is more of a. So if you go down with the side and
They also.
They started making the wood over time. They moved into aluminum and light them. So they said like can be more manipulated by the sky. You know, just to adjust that. I never asked about the technique, and I know it's about like I started to talk last, and I you sort of learning on it because it really varies when it depends on humidity of the air and like the how many is the coffee, right? And I was doing something, like invited, okay, you can do your thing now, you know, buy the carpet, you know, you have to wait till then, I think it's okay. So it really depends. But this year, it was.
So dirty.
And it's gonna be a slot. You're gonna wait for the empty. You're gonna wait for on the big audience, after that.
Yeah, you are.
No, because actually, they're actually able to.
Yeah.
I'm hoping to, at some point, we'll switch materials, right? But they're not that good.
But I know that.
And I'm advocating that I know, so there's some signs that yeah, they already developed. Yeah.
But then this is up here, so that.
It's so, it's interesting, well, like the now, yeah. But of course, the amount of voice, make sure that it's flush, you don't. Oh, yeah. Like, this is my office. Right. Yeah, you might, yeah.
I think it's a little less. Other students now for your program. Wow.
It's a second.
Attention.
6 to 7:30. A lot of people are like.
City.
Patients, and then also
City tree.
technology.
Design.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of the public arts in the stadium now, it's beautiful, so. She was
Okay.
involved. Yeah, she was, her husband. Very, very good. Promotion. Oh. Like.
Lindsay.
so-
Yeah. Now it's.
Her design.
She's our. See it very. I was gonna say, so I. Do that. With the Laura, you know, like bigger than just.
How many do you select each year?
And
My
then
year in
trying to gather,
2024, we selected.
it's actually, we have to figure out that, more organizations along,
Does it?
you know, but they are all.
What's security?
So then we're on the.
Oh, sure.
And so let's talk about together, ideas.
It seems to have a lot of symmetry.
Yes.
They seem replacing curves everywhere.
But no, because this is, you know, like figured out how to connect it, you know, some business.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
Art and stuff,
So what are you working on now?
They also.
I bet a lot always.
I don't know if.
So remember the idea that I talked about training?
Yes, yeah.
Yep.
So we, yeah, of course.
So that's.
Yeah. But we, and I do.
Oh, that's great.
So I was very seasonal.
Do you get notified where your poetry ends up and yep, I'll tell you.
We're gonna.
And then she gets.
Right, they're
all-
warfare officer, so I am. So were you?
Yeah, it's great to know that. Yeah. I just didn't get one, that's fine.
So we just to see how it works. So I would love to do something.
Yeah.
I have information.
I was like offer a workshop every month.
Okay.
So people while, right, and then, there was Virginia in Norfolk, but I was sort of like, basically that point.
Yeah, that's what he said. You guys, yeah.
I was in Indianapolis.
So.
That's right.
Oh, no, I'm saying.
He's the same.
I said.
Yeah.
I love it. So.
Oh, yeah.
It's like.
I'm like, it's funny, sometimes I grew up around, like, well, that was. Yeah, I know, and then the whole jet. Wow. You know.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, or do you?
I mean,
Interesting to have artists in residence, you know, because that's, I mean,
we all want to be
the,
95.
you know, the project, what's leadership structure.
Yeah.
So if we do that, you would be able to. I don't know what, you know, and then it's kind of like, yeah. You're hearing situations.
Yes, I was, no idea, but I just, I didn't. Oh, I guess I have a gas talking.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, I understand.
Yeah.
Justin.
Justin is like, he's like a ball of fire, man.
No idea.
Yeah.
No. I know, it's so well, but yeah, like there's so much stuff that's just like,
These are hosting
diaper bank.
And then all the pews are like filled up with diapers, because that's where all the storage was. Justin is like the guy who's like, yeah, beat it all. And so, yeah, he's fantastic. He's putting money. But yeah, right. But yeah, so that's where I live.
Yeah, they have.
Technically, House of Mercy is out.
Exactly, so that's what, Hey, yeah, my God. There's the crowd. A little bit.
It's like.
But he was on some of the tree area, so he was spent his time on.
I was
Yeah. And let, yeah, that was great. I think
Yeah, I.
She is too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so what, how are you gonna bring them in?
Well, so I think we would do it as a collaboration and union.
Yeah.
And so that would give us this amazing.
Makes so much sense because, you know, university is the line. Communities. The whole design.
Yeah, and so I think it was.
That's, they got to the, I was.
Yeah.
They didn't.
And then you have islands. Yeah.
We're going to reconvene in the next couple minutes or so. So folks can grab your snacks, your water, folks outside too. We can come back together next couple minutes.
You do some parts.
Very clear memory.
Yeah.
So like,
Yeah.
was like hitting me, and then walking on. That
If it's like a state park, worth the grant, that's like.
Yeah, yeah. You don't know.
Time I'd be going like, oh, that's probably. Oh, you're lucky. So, but I'm doing lucky people that I like, but then I have to.
So I don't know. Which one? Well, it doesn't matter though, because of me. And I think students should just.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's always, yeah. I'm always saying like, to me, it's something that I mean, there are as many people in that building.
Another quick call. We're going to be reconvening if folks could come back into the room and settle in. Great. I hope you enjoyed the exhibit. Just a quick debrief of the exhibit. If folks want to answer any of these questions, feel free to raise your hand. I would love to hear how it went for all of you, or any other reflections from the time that we just spent. Well, maybe it's a fun story that you're getting a chance to meet somebody. I'd love to hear about that too. But what's something new that you learned, something you didn't know before, or now have a better understanding about now that you've got the chance to see the We Are Water exhibit? What's a question that's surfacing, coming to mind after that experience? Or what's an image, especially for us poets in the room, what's an image that is standing out to you after seeing the exhibit?
I could say from listening to the stories, the preciousness of water, the preciousness, and also the way it connects, the way water connects. Those are just two things I'm thinking about, that those words that is around.
Absolutely. The preciousness of water and the way that water connects. I love that. Definitely. Anyone else with any reflections on any of these questions on the screen right now? Yep.
That Minnesota is a headwater state, which means water goes out, but no water flows in. That's cool.
Definitely. Minnesota is a headwater state. That is a great fact. I didn't know that.
Especially important to protect it.
Yeah.
So the water flows down into all the other states.
For sure. Definitely. Definitely. Any other quick reflections from the exhibit? That's a great question. Lindsay, do you have any?
You might have to repeat that for the.
Yeah, the question was, what is the opposite of a headwater state? What would that be?
Footwaters.
Footwater. The poets in the room, of course. I love the imagery.
Don't tell like the downwater state.
Downwater state.
Receiving.
Receiving.
It's not quite the same.
Okay.
Delta is the very bottom where it flows into the ocean.
Right, so it starts with
Believe so.
water and ends at a delta.
That makes sense. Yeah. Great. Thank you for that. Once again, really powerful exhibit. I hope we use that. I heard some themes surfacing throughout that too. Themes for inspiration that we can use for the rest of our time together. I know you're thinking, Kevin, like we've been together for an hour and a half for a poetry workshop. We haven't written anything yet, so this is our first warm up. Does everyone have a piece of paper and something to write with? You can use your phone too, if that's something that's preferable to you. You have a notebook. I see a giant pack of printer paper. I don't know if that's for us.
Yes.
I know everyone, okay. If you need a piece of paper, you'll be working on 3 different prompts today. So actually I would grab 4 pieces of paper if you don't have one. It's located on that printer paper on the corner before we start. So I'm gonna give us a little bit of time to make sure everyone has something to write with, something to write on. But everyone should have a pen on your table.
I say that all.
Wait, what?
I'd like.
I'm getting mine delivered.
We have pencils too, if anyone wants a pen.
I am special guest.
Does anyone else want some, printer paper? Everybody okay? I just wanted to say that it's easier to pretend it didn't happen if you write it on paper and recycle it.
Great. So the prompt that I have for you today for our free write or warm up activity is pulls from the question that I had asked you earlier. Write about a memory or reflection on a lake, river, body of water, preferably in St. Paul. It doesn't have to be. I wanted this to be open for us to be generative and to be creative. I don't know about y'all, but I'm not a poetry on demand type of person. A lot of my poems pull from journal entries or from just free writes. So it can be a journal entry, story, essay, poem, whatever that might be, but really focused on the memory aspect of it. It might be the greatest day in the world that you had at the lake, but also we're also inviting in other types of memories. I know talking about Lake Nokomis, I almost drowned there as a little kid. So that's a memory that's really difficult for me when I think about water. Be very mindful of this throughout this activity too, physical descriptions, how you're feeling during this moment that you're describing. So both the physical descriptions of water in the environment, but also the emotional descriptions of what's happening. We're gonna spend about 5 minutes doing this. And you can finish by writing down the season in which this memory happens at the top of the page or wherever you have space. So I'm going to give us 5 minutes to do so. So it's currently 2:26, and I'll check back in at 2:31. But spend some time free writing around this. We're gonna wrap up in about a minute. Right, we're gonna bring it back together. First question, I like to gauge sort of the space in the room. Do folks feel like that was enough time for free write? Would you like more or less time? Does it feel good? Feel good about that? Okay. Great. Some quick reflection questions that we can answer as a large group. General reflections of what you chose to write. How did you describe the water? How did you describe everything around the water? Are there key verbs or adjectives, adverbs that were coming out as you were describing this moment, this memory, this location? What perspective did you write from? And the last one, what's your favorite image from what you wrote? Specific image. That's something that I'll keep coming back to. But folks wanna share?
So I wrote about walking along the Mississippi River in October. It's one of my favorite things to do. Keeps me calm, the walking and being near the water. And the image that I have here is stopping at an overlook, see the trees and the water flowing. And making me very emotional for the reason.
Thank you for sharing that. Definitely, thank you for sharing that. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that image too, and sharing that with all of us. Absolutely. Other reflections? Yep.
So I wrote about on the Mississippi River just south of the Robert Street Bridge. There's the 1965. It's written on the foot wall. It's the high point of the foot. So I just like talk more about that how like the dichotomy of how water can be like life giving, but it's also very can be destructive and uncontrollable. It's even though we try to, sometimes it's like it's a power much greater than that we can kind of control, and that's like that 1965 and seeing how high it is a reminder of that.
For sure, there's definitely an element of change and transformation, like you said, both life and as a catalyst for decay and whatever that might be. So I appreciate sort of that extra layer of time. I think that adds a lot to it. Yeah, definitely. Other reflections from folks from that trip? Yep.
I wrote about a field trip I took a few years back for college to a dam of the Mississippi River. Water wasn't clear there, and I remember having a good time, learning a lot. It's a reminder of how much hard work it takes to really manage water, control it.
Definitely.
Sort of the other end of water being uncontrollable at the end of the day. And yet we still do try.
For sure. That's a powerful theme of trying to manage, control water and its form. Yeah, absolutely. We can take one more if someone wants to share. Yep.
I wrote about, well, when we were little in the 70s, our mom told us never to touch the river. And how it was just back then, it was like, she says, just diseased, it's dark, it's dirty, you know, it's just like really this almost thing that we would fear.
For sure, absolutely.
It has changed so much, in my lifetime.
Absolutely. Once again, the theme of time, of how things have changed, as well as sort of a different conception of water that we might generally think of water as life-giving, but also water as this source of, it resonates a lot with me because my mother said a lot of the same things to me too growing up, to never touch like the river water. And that's fascinating to think about. Great, thank you for that. We'll come back to this prompt throughout our time here together. But for the next section, I want to talk a little bit specifically about sidewalk poetry, about sort of, I don't want to say what makes a good sidewalk poem, but things that I've noticed during my time as both a curator and a juror of 2 sidewalk poetry contests. I want to preface this by participating in today's workshop. And you're not inherently advantaging your submissions in any way. So, don't sue me. But this is a nice way to just provide some tips and tricks and hopefully help focus, provide some focus for whatever you might be sharing. So next couple of slides. So once again, I wanted to share the context. The poems that are submitted into this context, into the contest, are literally printed onto chunks of sidewalk throughout the city of St. Paul. Their main audience is folks who are walking by to and fro. And I think that's really beautiful in that the public art is accessible to all in that immediate environment. But with sort of the new ways that we're seeing it too, with the QR codes, they're also going to be seen online in their different translations. But sort of putting ourselves in the heads of the folks who'd be reading it and the types of poems that we all will be creating for it. So I actually have 5 poems that I wanted to share that are past winners across the past decade or so, I believe. A few of these were in contests that I curated, and all of these also touch on water in some way, which I think is really cool. First one is called River Child. I won't be reading them, but we can spend a little bit of time reading through them for each one. Next slide, about 5 seconds. Poem 2. Progressing slide in about 5 seconds. Poem 3. Moving to the next slide in 5 seconds. Poem 4. Next slide in 5. Poem 5, which I will read because it's in Hmong. Elon the today Mekong, what's a hole today Mississippi. Utawaluche chia hokulushia. Translated in Hmong, it starts at the Mekong, it comes to the Mississippi. I must create my home inside of my heart. Paul was actually here earlier today. They are no longer here. They were in the back. Cool. I wanted to ask us, what are some things that we've noticed? I can move back to reference the slides for folks who are answering, but what did we notice about sort of these 5 poems, whether it's their use of imagery, subject matter, themes, perspective, poetic devices? What else did you notice? Yep.
One seemed like a child to me. I guess I see a lot of children making art, but it seemed like a child drawing, creating, and yeah, it just seemed like that was a good perspective. Do this, draw this, move this here. Yeah.
That's a very interesting perspective, sort of like you said, from perspective. Yeah, I didn't notice it before, but I definitely see it now. Yeah.
I really like that refugee one, and and just it is like pulling strength from the water. But not knowing how to swim, but I don't know, just there's something where you can just draw like strength and bravery And I believe you can swim in there free, so it's kind of, I love that one. That's really.
Absolutely. Most definitely. Yeah, the refugee one is a really strong one, like you said, for all the reasons you stated. Yeah, one of my favorites. Yeah. Other things folks notice about the imagery or
The one where the last words are Little Earth.
Yep.
The repetition, like the lake said, creek said, river said, but then the how many makes it, I think, both easy to read and then, but also quite, like it has its own rhythm and melody that feels really lovely when you're reading it.
for sure. I agree completely. The repetition, the sense of rhythm and how it still ties to location in a really powerful way. And the use of verbs too, which are simple, right? But how they sort of bleed into the nouns on the side. I think that's such a powerful use of repetition.
Yeah, I felt that rhythm too, like it feels like a heartbeat.
Yeah.
You know, the rhythm makes the heartbeat you're talking about.
Yeah. Felt good. Yeah. That really, really powerful observation. Yeah. Other things that folks notice?
We had one that was like 3 paragraphs in, yeah, that one. So if that was chosen, would that be printed on like 3 different sidewalks? And in what order, you know, would they be stamped?
That's a great question that I don't know in terms of form.
I can speak to that. That's a single, okay, so all of the poems, the winning poems, are rendered into designs by a graphic designer. And the graphic designer determines a number of things, including segmentation and where the script ought to be placed within the sidewalk tile. And that's why sometimes you see them towards the bottom of the tile, sometimes towards the top of the tile. And so to answer your question, this is on a single tile.
That's on a single tile.
Using a single poem frame.
Okay.
Because they used to be restricted to much smaller, like the refugee poem, and so now they can be that long.
That is also a good question. A lot about in terms of characters.
Yeah. We request that your submissions do not exceed 300 characters because it's really difficult for this stamp to turn out and look longer than that. We do have longer poems in our archives. They end up not getting used very much because they're so difficult to stamp. I'm trying to keep it around 200 characters or less.
Perhaps we ought to iterate that the guidelines to the sidewalk poetry contest are made available to you. And
Yeah, it's on our websites. If you scan the QR code that you'll see, it'll take you directly to our website where we've got the rules. And we ask the poems are between 200 and 300 characters. You may do less characters than that. But yeah, try not to exceed.
But the premise is it goes into one piece.
Yes.
One tile.
Yes.
Oh, that's right.
We'll have some time at the end of the workshop too, if you want to actually visit the link and see if you have any questions about the submission process that we can help answer during our time here. Ask for any other things that folks notice, commonalities or differences between the poems selected in the past. So here's some things that I've noticed. As we said earlier, they're usually pretty short. Once again, I come from the background of slam poetry where poems are typically 3 minutes long and then much longer than this. It's a very different form. But like 300 limit, your word economy is very, very concise. You have to think a lot about how you're positioning and creating your image versus other types of poetry. Obviously, this is a public art poetry contest. The poems themselves are often very much rooted to a sense of place in the location. This isn't always explicit, as I said earlier. It's not, it's not the Hamlin University, for example, is not being often you don't have to mention Hamline University in a poem in order for it to resonate with the jurors, in order for them to understand that you're writing a poem on the city of St. Paul. There's lots of different ways to approach this. And a lot of these poems, as we've seen before, the use of wit, use of turns, were very much like haiku, where you're at the last line or in the next stanza, you're turning the momentum of the poem in a different way, or even just using juxtaposition to really propel your poem into different stages is something that's really important for something of this size. Use of vivid imagery, making sure that folks understand your imagery or the lines that you're creating, and tapping into all the senses possible. Something that we saw in all the poems before too. And then we've mentioned a lot about themes. Once again, I don't want to limit you folks and say that, only poems that are about nature are going to become sidewalk poems, but we have seen recurring themes that popped up in many of these sidewalk poems, things like nature, observations, community, the immediacy and weight of the moment, especially sort of thinking about the state of the world. And also a lot of poets like to incorporate humor into their poems too. So that's something fun to think about as you're approaching your different poems. Are there any questions where some of them are rising up already, but as you're thinking about sort of the type of poem or content, subject matter, not to say that I'll have the answer for them, but things that are surfacing for you as you think about?
In the exercise you asked us to do, there is a kind of emphasis on St. Paul. And the concept of water is a universal concept. Yep. So initially in my mind, I was playing with that, because you have water in any continent, in any place, or eventually, hopefully, in the world. So how much is important for you or for the juror or for the institution that this will be a more local contest?
For sure. As in my preface, I am not a juror or a curator, but that's a great question, though. That's a great question. Yeah.
Because on one hand, if you have languages,
yep,
everything has to be tied to a particular culture and place. Mm-hmm. So I feel a kind of confusion, at least.
For sure, most definitely. I think from my perspective in past contests, I think I don't want to say there has to be a specific mention. I think like you said, I think there's ways to approach the topic from a universal sense, and the theme of water is also a very versatile one, where we can talk about it in many different ways that still are able to create a poem that would fit the case for a good sidewalk poem. But is there anything more that you wanted to add, Mohannad?
Sure, if you don't mind my adding.
For sure.
I mean, sidewalk poetry as a program is supposed to showcase works that speak the city, as it were. I mean, these poems are meant to co-author the city's culture, and as such, if it's in speaking the city, it speaks on behalf of the people who inhabit the city, many of whom have come from other places, many of whom have been born to people who come from other places. That story is the story of St. Paul, but perhaps linkage to the city is important, because this is a program that's restricted to St. Paul residents as well, as you may know, and as such, it's very much it's kind of encouraging people to tell others what they feel as residents of the city, so that such perspective is not only coming top down, from government or from powerful entities, but rather is emerging from the ground, from ground level. So I would say locality is important. And if I may also add a couple of provisos, please keep in mind that these are going to be consumed by people of all ages and all backgrounds. So perhaps erotica might not be the most stern provocation, you know what I mean?
For sure. Thank you for that. But really great question, Anna. Very, like you said, it influences the type of poem that you want to write and submit to a contest like this. That context is extremely important. Yeah. Other questions about the types of poems or themes or content? Really like what you said, Mohannad, about sort of as residents of St. Paul and with a variety of life experiences, you bring all of that into your poem, or you can from your perspective, and all of that is valid in your understanding and concept of a poem that speaks to the city of St. Paul. And I think there's a beauty to that. So I think that that's important to remember too. So as we said earlier, want to touch more about the theme of water specifically. There's a variety of different themes that can touch into it in such a versatile theme, but one specifically that I wanted to think about with all of you is the changing states of matter. Water being able to be frozen, to be a gas, to be a water, to be a liquid, and about how we can sort of use that energy and that imagery and how we approach the parameters of a sidewalk poem in which we have a very small word economy, but still have the ability to express change and to paint a variety of pictures. So I want to move into this next activity. And this is very similar to the one you've done before. But this warm-up part 2 is what you're going to do is referencing the season that you wrote earlier about the specific moment or location that you chose. I want you to spend 5 minutes and move that location one season. If you wrote about it during the fall, I want you to move into winter. If you wrote about it during the summer, I want you to move it to another season. It doesn't have to be one season, it could be just another season, but let's move it, particularly thinking about the changing state of water and the concept of change itself and weather in general as Minnesotans, as people who live in St. Paul. I find that very fascinating. So I'm gonna give you 5 minutes and choose that particular location and move it into another season and see how that affects the, as we said earlier, the verbs, the adjectives, the adverbs, the images that are coming out of it. Once again, it doesn't all have to be positive, but to really see how that change is happening, be cognizant of that. So I'm gonna give you 5 minutes and we'll check back in at 2:58. Gonna wrap up the next minute or so. We're gonna come back together. We're gonna jump right into the third part of this prompt. So now each of us should have a set of, or a pair of reflections of this body of water, of this memory, of this location across 2 different seasons. And for the next 5 minutes or so, I want you to think really closely about the transition between these moments. Can you describe what is happening, what is changing, whether it's from a physical sense, whether from it's a point of time? How do you change from one season to the next one? How is the perspective of the person who's telling this changing? How is the land, the water changing? But really focusing on the transition. We talked earlier about passage of time and water, about how there's life and death and decay. Think about all these different things, but we're going to spend another 5 minutes really thinking about how you and then I'll check back in at 3:05.
Yes. There are any ways?
We're gonna come back together in the next minute or so.
Hold on.
Great. For this next section, could we break up into small groups of 3 or 4 folks? Preferably, you could be in a group of folks that you came here with, but also try to pair up with folks who maybe you haven't had a chance to talk to today. But I love small groups, especially as the last one. So if you folks could break up into small groups and have some reflection questions for us. Cool. So on the screen, you'll see the reflections, very similar to our first reflection, but general reflections of what you chose to write about, both in both of your sort of memories or reflections, and then really talk about the change, how you describe that change, your use of verbs, adjectives, or images. And then I love this question is just, what is your favorite image from what you've wrote so far, and how might that be incorporated into a poem that you might want to write next? And then include the last one too, is the perspective, because I feel like that's such an important question, is how does your perspective provide a unique look into this moment or location? But feel free to break up into a small group and discuss. And then we'll come back together around 3:12. So I'm gonna give us about 7 minutes to talk through this.
Winter. So I wrote about
We have groups of 2. Could you incorporate yourself to groups of 4? 2 groups. Could you all come together?
Oh,
I'll start. My daughter. So after I went out there, I started looking at the lawn, and I kept seeing like the grass and stuff. So like my kids, States had already started talking about like when I was starting. And so, you know, that's kind of what I started. In the winter.
yeah.
Writing my life and getting off and pushing my to crack that ice, and having like the so I don't know, there was something about that, and they wanted that performance that I would
Which one of us is speaking first?
when I said
I often found that walking and running fresh in the lights. That changes. And then I land on the state. Fish still swimming. Fish are still swimming.
Yeah.
I don't know, I should.
Still.
That's fun because I also talked about this bring into the topic. I was talking about
the field trip of the day after.
like the action stuff. Bring the function. Flyer became even more on the dam. More.
Oh, okay.
Economy of water and the creation, defines it.
It's weird.
Yes.
You know, so, I get, you know, the sidewalk.
So open.
That was a nice early memories. Like the city, you know, that was where the team dream was. And just being down there, you know, trees are.
Sort of like somebody. I've, so one time,
Transition.
for now,
It's like I see.
Then that's why some people write back. I struggle to write like 5 minutes too.
yeah, and you know, I have a kids of like. Environmental that work.
Bring up. Right, you go well. Yeah, it is.
I know I
I know that. I think it's named after
We're gonna come back together next couple minutes.
So you encounter speaks. Where the main is at. When there was.
I think I've already got something that I have.
Already.
Yeah. I'll warm up and then something else. I had written so long that I wanted, that I would be here to get the news flowing. I don't know. I'm a little nervous about that. Yeah, well, yeah.
And so she.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
But, yeah.
It's like a cruise.
But I mean, that's definitely kind of seen. It's
Not the most. Yeah.
All right, we're gonna come back together. Feel free to return to your seats or stay where you are. We are gonna come back together for the final reflection.
I'm trying to get the app anywhere. Doesn't have to be live.
All right, so we're gonna bring it back together. All right. First of all, I'm really excited to see the volume of conversation. Like, it's super great to see y'all getting to know each other, nerding out over what we just did. I would love to hear from folks. Very similar to how you shared with each other, but I would love to hear from folks throughout the room, general reflections about what you chose to write about, but we can also get more nitty gritty and talk about, was there specific uses of words, verbs, adjectives that you use to describe change or water that you feel like were really powerful or might be inspiring for other folks in the room as they set out to write their poems that you want to share? Favorite image that you worked on that you felt was really cool and want to share with us too, or about perspective or anything in general. Maybe it's a new friend you made today that you want to describe. That's completely cool too. But do folks want to share something?
I was just gonna say, I found out that there's a secret waterfall in St. Paul that's called Shadow Falls. And Jackie's writing was about searching for it, not knowing exactly where it was, like finding it in the winter and then coming back in the spring. And it was just like, it reminded me of the piece where someone said there was this childlike quality in some of the books, but that childlike quality exists like inside of all of us. And I was practically moved to tears.
For sure.
So much craziness in the world to imagine the opportunity to explore something new that's right there in your own neighborhood just really hit me.
Definitely. Yeah, the mystery of was it Shadow Falls? I've never known about this.
Over here.
Oh, super cool.
The secret is out.
Wow. For our online video audience, check out the map at see where the mystery waterfall is. Awesome. Thank you for that. Other reflections from folks? I saw someone start to speak on this side.
Well, that's really funny and weird. What I was gonna say is that when we were sharing our stories, another memory came up, looking for hidden falls. Which, I mean, this is only my third year here, so sometimes I don't know things that other people know. Like how to say Wazetta or something. So falls. Three times we couldn't find the falls and some other hiker was laughing at us like, but there really were some falls. we just had to look in a different season. They were there. And we were so giddy. We were just like pooping it up. But now I have to find shadow falls.
I can help. I can help find guidance.
Hidden Falls and Shadow Falls. I love this. We're writing poems, we're writing mysteries. I love it. All right. Any other reflections from folks? Once again, through any of the questions or any nerdy, crafty poetry observations too, I'm welcoming those as well as themes that we talked about. Yep.
I was just, since we're specifically talking about poetry on water, in my group I mentioned the poem Up on Cripple Creek by the band. And I don't know if any of you guys heard of the band, maybe it was on their album Last Waltz. I guess they're so popular of a musical group that Martin Scorsese had to make a movie about them. And but a lot of people, and I look at it, I'm an astrologer, I'm a trained astrologer, and when I look at water, I think of like Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces and the water energies and in nature. And when I first heard about Cripple Creek, I heard the last line of the chorus is like drunkard's dream, and I was like, wow, those are Pisces words. And then I was like, the whole chorus is like, up on Cripple Creek she sends me. If I spring a leak, she mends me. I don't have to speak, she defends me. It's drunkard's dream if I ever did see one. And the song starts with when I get off of this mountain, and gravity takes water down the mountain. When I get off this mountain, you know where I want to go. Straight down the Mississippi River to the Gulf of Mexico. And Minnesota is like the headwaters, as we mentioned before. And Louisiana, where the Mississippi, I like to take the food, or the waters, as we'll say. It's just it's kind of like the river divides our country, but it also brings us to gather and joins us with travel and shipping stuff. And I don't know. I just wanted to add that maybe in you guys' creative juices to think about, maybe if you're. I'm not from St. Paul, so I can't do the poetry contest, but I'm writing a poem about water, so I came here.
You can move here.
You got a month, yes.
I gave birth to a baby in St. Paul, so I was like, does that count? I have lived in St. Paul, but not currently. So, but super excited to see what you guys come.
Definitely, thank you for that. I love the images that you shared, and also the band recommendation. I love that. Thank you. Yeah. Other observations or reflections from folks?
I was just struck by just the presence of the Mississippi. It is imprinted on all of us living here. As we bring up, it's part of our lives and our memories, and it's
Absolutely.
ignored.
Definitely the presence of the Mississippi. Yeah, definitely.
I mean, it's the same like here. Yeah, three sides surrounded by the
Absolutely.
we can't escape.
St. Paul is where the barges stop.
Oh, interesting.
They can't go further out because there is only one waterfall on Mississippi. That's St.
Oh, yeah.
There's no waterfalls after that. Everything's lock and dams, but that's the only natural waterfall on the Mississippi River.
I never knew that. It's a great observation. Yeah.
That's right. We need some scientific and geographically specific poems. Like maybe that's right. So there's one poem that says that, like, with the barges stop.
Yeah.
And then there's another poem that's flirty and imaginative and shows one foot in, was it Laos? And the other foot on the other side of the ocean. So maybe that's the answer, is that all are welcome.
Definitely. Yeah. I love that. Water touches all of that. Yeah. Any other reflections folks want to share?
I just kind of bouncing off her ideas about like water all connecting us, and I know a lot of artists, they like, I don't know, the cosmic sea, like there's this cosmic place where we like pull our inspiration from and manifest it in the reality of the material world here.
A manifested reality.
Yeah, that cosmic sea, that's cool. Or, yeah.
Cosmic sea and manifested reality. I'm saying that in the microphone, putting it into the transcript. Beautiful. Any other reflections from folks?
Well, actually, I'm gonna backtrack because what I was gonna say is gonna be the last thing I say, but okay, now I don't remember, and somebody here might know. Is it West St. Paul that's south of the river or of St. Paul, or is it South St. Paul that's west of St. Paul? I know what it's one or the other.
St. Paul is south of St. Paul.
Okay, West St. Paul is south. Okay.
St. Paul is east.
Really?
North St. Paul, which is not part of St.
Okay.
They were optional.
Yeah. I just want, I couldn't remember, I figured this would be the crowd for that. And then you mentioned music, and of course, I'm very much into blues, and you know, you think of the Delta and Chicago and Minnesota, how the music came up the Mississippi. But regarding what we were talking about in our small groups, I noticed that water was maybe not necessarily the focal point of my memory, but it was what drew the memory, because the water reminded me of people. Like one example I gave, there were several, but one example was, you know, when I was a kid, my parents took me to Como or Lake Harriet for the music. And then as they got older, then I took them to Como and Harriet for the music. You know, so it's about people, but it's the water is, you know, I don't know, the connection or whatever.
I love that, especially as we think about the theme. It doesn't always have to be explicitly a poem about water. Like you said, water can be a conveyor of larger concepts, larger happenings and moments, or other things that are happening. And I think that's such a powerful way of understanding it. I think that provides a really great perspective too, as we're also approaching our different poems. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Other last reflections? I just have a quick summary for my last slide. Once again, theme of water is really rooted in so many different types of imagery. As we said before, life, death, destruction, passing of time, how we root ourselves to location. I think as you set out to write your poem, especially the types of poems that Sidewalk poems lend themselves to, we can think a lot about these transition points, especially the last part of our writing activity, as we think about transition and change, and about how we can create that change using our words, whether it's through verbs or juxtaposing different images next to each other, creating turns. I think that's something that's really exciting about short form poetry, is using one or two words or an image and providing an engine to change into the next season, whatever that might be, whether it's the literal next season or it's a moment that happens 30 years from now. And then also understanding your perspective. I think that was really breathed beautifully in the different poems that we saw earlier, past winners, and the different perspectives that folks brought. And how that can really illuminate how we see our city in different ways, the environment around us, and understanding different ways. I keep coming back to what was said earlier too, of sort of like a lot of these poems felt like we were describing or observing to children, or like the simplicity of that observation, and about how that welcomes in especially large audiences of people and the person walking down the street to be a part of that image, and how important perspective plays into this type of poetry. So I think that's something that's really powerful too. But great, that's the end of my time. Feel free to hang out and write with us. We're in this space until 4. Mohannad, did you want to share, or Lindsay, did you want to share anything else?
What do we do if we want to submit now?
I can speak to that.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you very much. Such a rigorously conceived workshop.
few closing notes, if I may. We'll be selecting 15 winners, but there likely will be hundreds of submissions. The contest has been open for 5 days, merely 5 days, and we already have, I think, 64 or 65 submissions. So that's the first thing to mention. Second thing to mention is there's a financial award, reward that comes with this, $200 for the winners. Just a gesture of acknowledgement, really. And thirdly, and if I may speak to this, Lindsay, we're hoping to stage an event that would welcome all submitters to read their poems at Raspberry Island as part of the Wakpa Triennial Art Festival that we mentioned. We haven't landed on a date yet. It would likely be staged at the bandstand there, if you've ever seen it. So more on that to come. Thank you very, 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 very much for showing up. It was lovely. Thank you.
You are welcome to stay, continue to be creative. I'm here to help facilitate any questions about the Watershed District. If you want that, you can explore the exhibit. I can give you a tour of our facility, anything. So the space is yours to do what you would like with it. And I appreciate your spending your beautiful Saturday afternoon with us and being creative. So please, please show this here. Okay.
You got it.
There were some questions about fabrication. And so I realized I probably should have prepped this before. This is what a sidewalk stamp looks like. And so the concrete artists, after the graphic design work Mohannad mentioned is complete, this a form like this will get fabricated of the poetry. And then it is actually a quite skillful process of imprinting this into the sidewalk and removing it in such a way that it is legible explicitly. But we have these 15 critters stamped around the outdoor sidewalk of our facility that all rely on fresh water. So that idea was inspired by Sidewalk Poetry's initiative as well. So.